We have the next speaker, Dr. Ketu Ramachandra Sekharji.
Namaste. At the outset, I wish to thank Nagaraj Garu for giving this opportunity to speak on this symposium on the retellings of Mahabharata. We know that the Mahabharata is a classical narrative that has inspired many retellings across centuries and spanning classical Sanskrit drama, regional folklore, and performative traditions. Sanskrit playwrights such as Kalidasa, Asa, Bhattanarayana, and others have continually reimagined the Mahabharata's moral and emotional complexities through the theatrical lens. Bhasa's Ūrubhaṅgam is one such daring reworking, which focused not on the victorious climax of the war, but on a moment of rupture and reflection, the Duryodhana's fall. So, just as the Sanskrit dramas reconfigure epic memory into poignant human struggles, we have some vernacular and the folk practices. I wish to mention the Duryodhana and Padukkai, which is practiced in Tamil Nadu's northern districts, such as the Viluppuram, Tiruvannamalai, for almost 18 days, marking the 18 days of war. These folk practices breathe local life into this episode of Duryodhana's fall, enacting the Kaurava prince's last moments with devotional fervor and even ritual mourning. So there are these diverse traditions which underscore the Mahabharata's boundless adaptability, where even the so-called villain finds a voice. So in this ecosystem of retellings, Ūrubhaṅgam emerges as one of the early instances, and not as a tragedy as in the Western sense, but as a profound metamorphosis of a tragic muse within an Indic moral universe. So Ūrubhaṅgam is an important play by Bhasa, a dramatist who is enlisted by Mahakavi Kalidasa as Prathata Yashas, occupies a unique and often a debated position within the canon of Sanskrit drama. It has consistently garnered recognition as a tragedy, an acknowledgement that stands as a singular exception in the theatrical tradition, which is largely characterized by an optimistic outlook and a general avoidance of tragic conclusions. The critics of Sanskrit drama, who typically expect an undeviating commitment to the positive outcomes, often find Ūrubhaṅgam's somber narrative somewhat disconcerting, and they grudgingly concede its tragic nature. The play meticulously dramatizes the climatic events of the final day of the great Mahabharata war and focuses intensively on the Kuru monarch Duryodhana's ultimate solitary encounter with Bhimasena following immense personal and collective loss. This in this talk, uh, I wish to bring forth that Bhasa in Ūrubhaṅgam masterfully integrates and manipulates the elements which are typically productive of tragic mood, but does not evoke despair or a sense of futility, but rather he does that to transform them into an heartening experience. So by orchestrating a found moral exaltation that culminates in Duryodhana's magnificent spiritual consummation and apotheosis, what Bhasa is doing is fundamentally redefining the purpose of dramatic suffering. So this approach achieves a deliberate metamorphosis of a tragic muse within this unique teleology of Sanskrit drama. Because Sanskrit drama traditionally aims for spiritual moral upliftment rather than the purgation of negative emotions. So, to fully appreciate Bhasa's innovative approach, the play's distinctiveness, uh, the, that we will employ kind of a comparative framework, though I'm not going to go deep into the Aristotelian concepts of tragedy. But we can contrast Ūrubhaṅgam's dramatic conventions and the philosophical underpinnings with those of the Western tragedy. So, this will illuminate how Bhasa's work, while engaging with the themes of profound suffering, ultimately diverges from the Western notions of tragedy and offers an alternative model of dramatic resolution. So the frequent characterization of Ūrubhaṅgam as a singular exception within a tragedy, within a tradition that forbids tragedy is highly significant. This is not merely an accidental deviation from the norm by Bhasa. It strongly suggests a conscious artistic decision by Bhasa. Given that the prevailing Sanskrit dramatic ethos lean towards an optimistic outlook and happy notes, Bhasa's choice to depict the Duryodhana's demise and the profound sorrow implies a deliberate push against the boundaries. So, this subversion of convention actually serves a deeper purpose. It allows Bhasa to explore complex themes of suffering and transformation, therefore, expanding the genre's expressive potential, the dramatic, the potential of the drama to express, while it still adheres to its ultimate philosophical aims. Furthermore, um, there are assertions that the play manipulates the tragic materials uh, uh, into heartening experiences, and it achieves a kind of a metamorphosis of a tragic muse. It is central to understand. It is central to understanding Ūrubhaṅgam's unique teleology. So let's start. The Ūrubhaṅgam dramatizes the events of the final day's battle in the Mahābhārata. So the millions, we know, almost the entire 18 Akshohani Sena has by now perished. Only a handful of chief contenders and some stray soldiers are left alive. The one who was responsible for this terrible carnage, Duryodhana, now stands alone, bereft of his legions of and bereft of his 99 brothers. So the play deals with the final encounter with redoubtable um, um, uh, Bhimasena, with whom Duryodhana is going to meet in a single combat. So Bhasa uses along one actor in order to portray this climatic phase. So in order to produce within a small compass this powerful impression of a large perspective and steadily narrowing down to an intensely concentrated focus, Bhasa begins by making a brilliant and a novel use of the sthapana. So Bhasa's Ūrubhaṅgam is distinguished by this innovative dramatic technique. Not even in many other dramas we will see this. So this meticulously shapes the narrative and powerfully evokes a sense of both horror and grandeur. These techniques actually highlight Bhasa's mastery in preparing the audience for the play's unique exploration of human suffering and spiritual transformation. So Bhasa commences Ūrubhaṅgam with the Sthapana, where the Sutradhara typically enters with his male attendant. There are other dramas with the Pariparshvaka, but this deliberate choice of a male companion in this particular play is deemed dramatically appropriate, auchitya, for the play's heroic as also the horrific subject matter. So this immediate establishment, okay, the martial and the grave atmosphere bypasses the more conventional, auspicious, or the romantic overtunes often found in the Sanskrit drama. So the Sutradhara presents himself in accordance to the subject matter, and by breaking the expected ceremonial opening, Bhasa immediately signals to the audience that this will not be a typical Sanskrit drama. So, through this effective choreography, the Sutradhara project a terrible scene of death and dissolution. And their succinct choral comments emphasize the dual aspects of war, the glorious Dharma and the evil propensities and the colossal destruction of the war. So these inducers actually skillfully guide the audience stage by stage towards the play's central conflict, which is the Gada Yuddha between Duryodhana and Bhima. And it achieves a comprehensive evocation uh, with supreme economy of time and effort. So this swift immersion prepares the audience for this psychological journey of Duryodhana. So following the Sthapana, Bhasa introduces the Vishkambhaka, which is the introductory scene. It features actually three ordinary soldiers who are non-combatant soldiers. So their unique status, which is midway between direct participants and neutral onlookers, actually holds a significant dramatic weight. So they are actually functioning as a choral trio. They further describe the scene of terror and dissolution, offering searching comments on events which are past and the present. And their primary focus or the primary role is to help intensify both horror and grandeur, the grandeur of the situations. And this happens in the minds of the audience. So Bhasa demonstrates a kind of a remarkable virtuosity by maintaining the audience focus on same objects while skillfully transitioning them from one set of emotions to another. So these soldiers provide a graphic description of the battlefield, comparing it to a yajna and a painting. Therefore, they are trying to establish a bipolar attitude of revulsion and fascination, of waste and achievement. So this preconditions the audience to engage with the complex themes, okay, rather than a simplistic good versus evil dictum. This directly influences the later evacuation of the rasa, such as Karuna and the Raudra, might intervene. It primes actually the audience for a multi-layered aesthetic experience. So these choral voices are integral throughout Ūrubhaṅgam, from the initial sthapana and the Vishkambhaka to the vivid description of the Gada Yuddha, and serves to advance the narrative and shape the audience understanding. So the commentators, the soldiers, describe the Gada Yuddha's progress in kind of a very delightful cinematographic fashion, capturing the reactions of the onlookers like Krishna and Balarama. So this technique impresses the entire war situation, leading to a crucial fight into the audience minds. This narrative strategy allows Bhasa to maintain the epic scale of the source material while simultaneously prepares the audience. Okay, so to powerfully portray the climatic phase of the Gada Yuddha within a limited scope, Bhasa employs an ekapatra or the one actor technique. This ensures the play's shift from external action to an intense exploration of Duryodhana's inner world. So the play proper commences with Duryodhana fallen and lying abjectly sprawled out on the ground with a broken thigh. This physical incapacitation actually marks a dramatic and immediate shift from the external action and the vast scale of the Mahabharata war to an intensely compact psychological reflective piece. And this is singularly oriented towards the illumination of the inner world of Duryodhana. So the prevailing background of the great destruction and the deadly silence further amplifies his agonized state. And also, it contributes to a kind of an highly sensational opening that immediately immerses the audience into his suffering. A few moments after Duryodhana's fall, Balarama, his teacher, advances to the stage and laments uh, his beloved disciple's pathetic condition. He compares Duryodhana to Vasuki at the end of the Samudra Mathan. The apt comparison that underscores the epic quality of Duryodhana's struggle and subtly hints at the dual outcome of agony and liberation, Amrita Mathana, that is set into motion by Duryodhana. So, in a profound and an unexpected contrast, Balarama thunders, okay, to a threat of vengeance against Bhima. But Duryodhana, instead of expressing gratification to this offer by Balarama, is anxious to prevent Balarama from doing harm to his enemy. This unexpected plea from the so called incorrigible, belligerent king Duryodhana actually offers a strangely moving experience to the audience. And he speaks words of wisdom, probably for the first time in his life. This marks the dawn of a newfound vision and nobility on his deathbed. He calmly declares, I am not vanquished, arguing that the anger and vindictiveness have now become utterly meaningless because the main players of the war are no more. And he attributes his defeat not to Bhima, but to Lord Krishna himself. Therefore, he silences Balarama. This radical character arc from being incorrigible king to one who speaks words of wisdom and declares that I am born anew is a profound shift. His acceptance of defeat as divine will and his subsequent actions signify a profound shift from the pursuit of the worldly power, the artha and the kama, to embrace the dharma and potentially the moksha. This suggests that his immense suffering serves as a catalyst for spiritual enlightenment. The play thus uses his physical downfall as a means to illustrate a profound spiritual ascent, where the ultimate victory is internal and moral. So the verse that he says to Balarama is Yena Indrasya sa parijata taru manena tulyam ritaha divyam varsha sahasram arnava jale suptascha yo leelaya तीव्रां भीमगदां प्रविश्य सहसा निर्व्याज युद्धप्रियः तेनाहं जगतः प्रियेण हरिणा मृत्योः प्रतिग्राहितः. So this encapsulates this profound understanding where he is acknowledging a higher power in his defeat. Bhasa then proceeds to Balarama exits and the Bhasa then proceeds to center the dramatic interest on an extended delineation of pathos. And he does so by introducing the shrunken reminder of his vast family. So those who walk into are the surviving members of his family, his young son Durjaya, followed by his parents, both blind, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, and his two wives. So this sequence is meticulously designed to produce a kind of an unforgettably vivid and compelling sequence of both pity and sorrow. The laments of his old parents deeply affect Duryodhana. Dhritarashtra addresses Duryodhana as the crown gem of my race, the king of the 18 Akshohanis, and unable to sustain this artificially cultivated tone of majesty, finally, Dhritarashtra calls out in his quivering voice. He says, Putra Shata Jeshtha Dehi me Prativachana. He says, O eldest of my 100 sons. This Duryodhana, choking with emotion, attempts to rise and greet them, momentarily oblivious to his broken limbs, only to collapse again in excruciating pain. And he wails, Ah, this is the second hit. No, this is the second time I have been fell to the ground. After it's not a re-aggravation of physical wound. This is more of his mental. He says, "Shrutam me bhimasenena gadapata kachakrehe samam urudvayenadya guroho padabhivandanam." Is the second hit is because he is not able to respectfully bow to his parents, and explicitly links it to being made an exile from the world of regard and courtesy, and the real extent of his humiliation and defeat. So, this suggests that the second hit functions as a profound symbolic blow, complete stripping away of his former royal identity, social standing, and reducing him, okay, uh, his diminished reality. So it makes the pain far more existential than merely physical. A series of encounters follows, a kind of a swelling tides of sentiments when his son Durjaya innocently settles on his thighs, out of love. Duryodhana cries out in agony and roughly pushes him away, and in deep distress, he murmurs out. He says, "Oh son, give up from today your old favorite seat." He says, "Tyaktva parichitam putra yatra tatra tvaya asyatam." Because from this day, this is no longer going to be your seat. Adya prabhrati nasti idam purva bhuktam tava asanam. So this very eloquent dramatic suggestion conveys the stark reality. The royal child must now find a new shelter. And when Durjaya insists on following him, Duryodhana says, "Kachaputra evam vrikodaram bruhi." No, it's an expression of despair, grief. And Bhasa concludes this dialogue mm, without actually elaborate laments, showing that his supreme concentration of effect through dramatic action rather than through Vachika or through the dialogues. Then Gandhari's entry, who has entered actually into uh, the theme, and her self-identification when she says, "O Lord, I am Gandhari, the famed mother of fearless children." So this actually marks a crucial turning point in Duryodhana's psychological journey. So it actually prevents Duryodhana from sinking deep into sentimentality. He recovers his original balance, the grip over himself, because he had recently acquired clarity of vision and a kind of a moral exaltation. And this now returns. And he gracefully comments saying that, "I feel as if today I am born anew." So then Duryodhana calls Durjaya to his side. Um, his parents become a bit tense, fearing that he might fuel dynastic feud. But this suspense is resolved when Duryodhana, true to his new acquired elevation and transcending all his lifelong position of hatred towards Pandavas, instructs Durjaya to show Pandavas the same regard as he would pay to his parents. So, in a soft note of sadness, not bitterness, says, "Aho vairam paschatapam samvrittam." This is a comment made by Balaram. So, in a sharp turn of events, now Ashwathama strides in furiously. He utters terrorizing qualities of heroic indignation and declares his intent to perform the concluding rites. Okay, and he seeks to revive Duryodhana's uh, uh, belligerency. Duryodhana, however, immediately recognizes this as a crucial moment, and instead of uh, feeling inspired by the words of Ashwathama, he feels uneased. He replies in a calm tone of self deprecation that this is the fruit of greed, and he takes all the blame upon himself. And despite Ashwathama's refusal to lay down the arms, and his threat to destroy the Pandavas, Duryodhana maintains his calm and persists in upholding the higher values. So what happens is it leaves his inner triumph in the minds of the audience without any doubt. So Ashwathama's furious entry, seeking to reignite Duryodhana's revenge, actually serves as a second crucial dramatic test. Had Duryodhana succumbed to this provocation, his newfound wisdom and transcendence would be undermined. Instead, his steadfast calm and permanence and depth of his internal change is reflected in his reaction. So, this interaction functions as a final crucible, which proves that his inner triumph is actually genuine and it is not a temporary resignation born out of weakness of the time. It elevates his character beyond the mere defeat, therefore making his death a conscious, dignified culmination of a spiritual journey rather than a simple consequence of a battlefield. So Ūrubhaṅgam actually engages uh, with and often deliberately deviates from the established conventions of Sanskrit drama, creating a work that is both rooted in tradition and is strikingly innovative. So there is this widespread belief holding that the Sanskrit theatrical tradition strictly avoids or even prohibits explicit depiction of death on stage. We have scholars, the Western scholars such as Wilson, MacDonald, Keith, who have frequently cited this as an absolute prohibition. However, a closer examination of Natya Shastra, it reveals a more nuanced understanding of the injunction. It says that, or it specifically states that the hero, the Nayaka of the Nataka or the Prakarana, is not to be killed on the stage. So, in a stark and deliberate deviation, Duryodhana is shown as dying on the stage, the end of Ūrubhaṅgam. This deliberate breach is actually central to play's unique teleology, which I mentioned in the start. This transgression is not an oversight. This implies that the thematic importance of Duryodhana's final transformative moments, his spiritual consummation, his triumph over bitterness, was paramount and it superseded the conventional injunctions. So the visual impact of his death on the stage is actually essential uh, for conveying this profound internal change and this heartening experience for Duryodhana, which would be significantly diminished if it was merely reported off stage. So this shows that Bhasa's willingness to prioritize the play's teleological message over strict adherence to every canonical rule, but sticking to its philosophy. So tragedy, as understood in the Western sense, is generally forbidden in Sanskrit drama. So the vast majority of plays normally conclude on a happy note with conflicts being resolved. That conflict resolution is the most important term here. So Sanskrit drama fundamentally regards existence as orderly and predictable, and conflicts are typically introduced to highlight the disruption to this order, ultimately being resolved to ensure that the characters resume their ordained places and peace is resolved. So this is a normal arc that most of the Sanskrit plays follow. Even Ūrubhaṅgam, despite the demise of Duryodhana, does not advocate any cynical worldview, which is normally seen in a Greek tragedy. The concept of failure in achieving the goal and frustration of the hero is not present in this drama. And it ends with a Bharatavakya, a favorable verse often delivered by Sutradhara. So the archetypal hero in Sanskrit drama is characterized as the Dhirodatta, signifying that a hero who is brave and sublime at any time in every situation. So Duryodhana's transformation in Ūrubhaṅgam, particularly his final composure, wisdom, and transcendence of hatred and vindictiveness, can be seen as aligning with aspects of this ideal, even in the face of defeat and death. So while the Western tragedy often focuses on heroes' downfall due to fate or hubris, Ūrubhaṅgam presents Duryodhana, the protagonist, as who, despite his past flaws, achieves a higher aspiration, a magnificent spiritual consummation in death. This indicates the tragic mood is a means to the end, the spiritual evaluation of the character, rather than merely depicting the inevitability of suffering or moral lesson through downfall. So Bhasa redefines the hero's journey. The physical defeat becomes the catalyst for a profound spiritual victory, which actually aligns with the broader philosophy of the Sanskrit drama, which guides towards dharma and transcendent values. So this Ūrubhaṅgam's unique blend of conventional tragic elements such as suffering, death, with a non-tragic, spiritually uplifting outcome positions it as a sophisticated bridge between traditional dramatic storytelling and a deeper philosophical inquiry. It uses the dramatic form as a kind of a vehicle to explore the profound themes of liberation, moksha, divine will, acceptance, and the transformative power potential of suffering, which are all central to our Darshanika Parampara. So, by consciously subverting the generic expectations, Bhasa elevates the drama from mere narrative depiction to a profound spiritual reflection. So, this offers a distinct paradigm for dramatic resolution, the one that prioritizes internal spiritual victory and enlightenment over the conventional narrative closure or the external success, which enriches an understanding of dramatic possibilities. So, this the play's remarkable ability to evoke complex and often contradictory emotions while simultaneously guiding the audience towards a heartening experience solidifies its status as a masterpiece of psychological and philosophical depth, challenging and enriching the conventional norms of tragedy across cultures. I really thank Nagaraj Garu for giving this opportunity. Namaste.
That was Ketu Ramachandra Sekhar's wonderful presentation. Unfortunately, he is now in Benares for a Kashi pilgrimage. He's in a pilgrimage now. So we were not able to have him for a direct talk, for a direct presentation.